Summer 2025's anime season is already looking super hype. We've got part 2 of Dr. Stone's Future Science arc. We've got Kaiju number 8 season 2, and probably the anime that most of us are really excited about. We've got Dawn to Dawn season 2 coming out. But nestled within all of those, we've got honestly a manga that I'm personally extremely excited to see animated, and that's going to be Gatchiakuta. See, Gatchiakuta is a story set in a trash punk world, which is already unique enough, but it's also got a power system where sentimentality is actually the power. And I realize it already sounds kind of power friendshipy, but let me tell you, it's not. It's not like your friend is getting a power or you're getting a power based off of your connection with them. No, it's when you take care of an object and you have enough time, attention, care poured into that object, it will gain a power based off of your unique goals. And the more time and care that you pour into it, the more powerful it'll become. But what exactly makes Gatchiakuta so unique, and what makes me so excited to see it get an anime? Well, aside from the fact that it's going to be animated by Studio Bones, who are the people responsible for little titles like, I don't know, MHA, or Mob Psycho, or FMAB. It's also got some of the sickest character designs that I've seen in anime in, honestly, a good bit. On top of all of that, it's also being written by a woman named Kei Urana, who I realize we might not be familiar with that name. I had to look her up myself when I first heard about Gatchiakuta, but let me throw another name at you. How about Atsushi Okubo? You know, the author of Soul Eater and Fire Force, two more of the coolest stories that we've gotten in the past 2 decades? Yeah, this is his successor, a woman who worked under him, and he has outright said that he considers her his successor. But maybe a little more importantly than whether I think the story is cool or whether I think it's going to look really freaking dope, what else sets Gatchiakuta apart from all the rest? See, Gatchiakuta is actually a really rich universe with incredible world building, an interesting and kind of complicated power system, and a cast of really unique and cool characters with their own personalities and abilities and goals. But then, who are these characters? How do their powers work? And how do they fit into this grungy, trashy world that we're about to dive into? Well, I'm here to answer all of that and more, because today we're talking everything you need to know about Gatchiakuta before the anime premieres on July 6th. But before we take the deep dive into the pit that is Gatchiakuta, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and ring that bell. So, Gatchiakuta is the story of a boy named Rudo, a 15-year-old who grew up in the slums. And the slums are a part of town where the rich used to send their criminals and still pump their trash into. The slums are dingy, they're dirty, they're poor, but surprisingly, they're also pretty low crime. See, the descendants of those original criminals, those are the people that reside in the slums now. They're known as tribesfolk by the upper class, and they're working their butts off to try to get rid of that negative association that comes with their existence. Rudo, however, is actually the son of a criminal, and not just any kind of criminal, a murderer. And so the tribesfolk see it as only a matter of time before he commits a crime too. And honestly, they kind of have a right to be a little apprehensive when it comes to Rudo, because while he is a good kid, he doesn't exactly do a great job of keeping his nose clean. See, the upper class in Gatchiakuta are insanely wasteful. See, if an object shows even the slightest bit of wear and tear, they'd rather throw it out and just buy a new one than try to fix it. See, obviously this mindset creates a ton of trash, and all that trash has to go somewhere. They obviously don't want it around them, so they created these giant waste collection sites that they send all this trash to, which pumps it into the slums and eventually into the pit. And the pit is this giant drop-off on the edge of the slums that once they send it over that, they just feel like they don't have to worry about it anymore. And of course, Rudo, being someone who doesn't see anything as worthless, hates this ideology. So he sneaks into these waste collection sites to try to find things that he can bring back, fix up, and sell to try to repay his adoptive father. And now obviously this creates a lot of tension between Rudo and the tribesfolk because he's committing a crime. He's not keeping his nose clean. And Then, of course, it creates a problem with the upper class because they don't want someone sneaking around in their trash that's disgusting. But the people who it seems to affect the most are the people who care about Rudo. And this is because criminals aren't sent to the slums anymore. They're sent to the same place trash is, and that's the pit. And once you're dropped into the pit, there's no coming back. And eventually, these concerns would be justified because after a string of really bad luck, and I mean horrendously bad luck, Rudo would be caught and dropped into the pit for a crime he didn't even commit. But he has one goal: make it back so that he can clear his name and take revenge on the people who put him there. This goal is going to prove even more difficult though, because not only does he have to find a way back to his home in the sphere, but he now has to find a way to survive in a new world where everything is out to get him. And I do mean everything is out to get him, because not only do the people on the ground hate people from the sphere that they call spherites, people like Rudo, for polluting their land with all of their trash, but that trash has also come alive in the form of trash beasts, and trash beasts attack people on sight. And of course, Rudo happened to find himself right smack dab in the middle of no man's land. See, kind of like the sphere has the upper class and the slums, the ground has zones too. These zones have two different categories. There's safe zones, which are exactly what they sound like. These are places where humans can inhabit without needing a gas mask, where trash doesn't dump as often, and where trash beasts don't really spawn. The second of these zones, though, they're known as polluted zones, and this is where the trash falls a lot more frequently, and where trash beasts do start to spawn. If you want to go into any of these polluted zones, you'll need a gas mask because the air has become so toxic that you won't survive. There are 6 areas, though, that are the worst of the worst, the most polluted zones that you can find. This is where trash beasts have fully taken over and trash is dumped constantly. The air here is so toxic that you won't survive longer than 15 minutes without a gas mask. These 6 zones are what are called no man's land. And it's in one of these no man's land that Rudo happens to get dumped. And he's not just there without a gas mask, which is already a big enough issue, but he's surrounded by 3 massive trash beasts. Just as it all seems hopeless for Rudo, as the 3 trash beasts are closing in, ready to take him out, he gets saved by a man named Engine, who happened to be watching from a far-off ridge. Engine is what's known as a giver, which is a person who's able to give life to an object. And after watching Rudo fight off the trash beast for a bit, he's convinced that Rudo is a giver too. But hold on. What do I mean when I say that givers have the ability to give life to objects, and what does it take to become a giver? See, in Gatchiakuta, feelings and emotions accumulate pretty heavily on the ground. And when enough of these thoughts are condensed in one area, they turn into this energy known as anima. And the formation of anima can cause a ton of different effects. One of these effects is actually what creates the trash beasts, and it's why they can't be defeated with normal weapons. See, because their core is made of condensed anima, and that core can only be destroyed by something else that's been imbued with anima, and this is where givers come in. See, givers have the ability to imbue objects with anima, or in other words, give them life. As far as we know, technically anyone can be a giver, but it takes a lot of time and dedication. The first step to becoming a giver is to have an object. It can be anything, a gift that you were given that means a lot to you, or a really cool rock you found. The important thing is that you care about this object. That was the easy part though, because now you have an object, but it doesn't have anima. Now you have to spend all of your time taking care of that object and filling it with those feelings and thoughts. And finally, after enough time and care and dedication has been given to that object, you unlock the ability to imbue it with anima. At this point, the object becomes known as a vital instrument, or a jinki, and this is how givers are able to take on trash beasts. The important thing to note here is that being a giver doesn't necessarily mean you're a good guy. It just means that you cared a lot about an object, enough that you could imbue it with anima. And bad guys can also take care of objects. So what determines the power a vital instrument will get? Luckily for us, that's a relatively easy thing to answer. It's not exactly straightforward, but the general rule is whatever the goal of the owner is, it will have something to do with that. For example, one of the vital instruments we're going to be introduced to in Season 1 has the ability to redirect attacks that carry malicious intent. And while that might seem pretty overpowered, if you paid attention to my wording, it has a pretty glaring weakness, one that the enemy is probably going to be able to take advantage of. Now back to givers. There are actually multiple groups that have givers in them. The one Engine is a part of, and the one that Rudo is going to join, is called the Cleaners. Cleaners are a faction on the ground that focus all their time on helping people and defeating trash beasts. And while in their ranks they do have givers, not all of the Cleaners are givers. But if only vital instruments, and then by extension givers, can defeat a trash beast, what exactly do the other members of the Cleaners do? Luckily, again, it's a pretty simple answer. They do basically everything else. You can be assigned one of 3 basic roles when you join the Cleaners. There's the combatants, which are made up of the givers, so obviously they go out and they fight the trash beasts. There are the Sentinels, which we don't know a ton about yet. And then there are the supporters, who go out and help the givers fight the trash beasts. Supporters are a group of non-powered individuals in the Cleaners that focus on subduing trash beasts so that the givers can then come finish them off. Now, supporters can take care of an object to try to eventually become a giver, but that's not really an overnight process, so most prefer to spend their time training their body so that they can subdue trash beasts through raw physical strength instead. And while that covers the important parts of being a cleaner, like I said before, there are other groups that have givers in them that aren't the Cleaners. In Season 1, we're going to encounter 2 different factions aside from the Cleaners that also have givers. The first of these 2 is going to be the Vianders. See, the Vianders are a group of givers who specialize in cooking and producing food. And in a place like the ground, that's pretty necessary because the ground is completely polluted with trash from the sphere. So food production is pretty difficult. But then in addition to the Cleaners and the Vianders, we have a third group, and these are known as the Raiders. Raiders are your typical bad guy, and aside from the trash beasts, they're going to be our main antagonists for Season 1. We learned that initially, Raiders were just your run-of-the-mill thief or bandit, but a couple of years ago, as time went on, they started to become more sinister and plotting. Unlike Cleaners, who have multiple different roles that you can be as a cleaner, every Raider is a giver, and you can tell if someone's a Raider because every Raider also carries a little purple lantern. Currently, their goals are still kind of a mystery, but what we do know is that they want to know everything they can about the sphere, and to accomplish this goal, they capture spherites, and this is why they started targeting Rudo, so that they can get all of their questions about the sphere answered. But that's pretty much it, guys. Everything you need to know before Gatchiakuta Season 1 premieres on July 6th. Let me know, are you as excited as I am to see this awesome manga turned into an anime? And if you had a vital instrument, what do you think it would be, and what powers do you think it would have? Let me know down below. And as a reminder, if you like the video or like this kind of analysis content on maybe your favorite animes, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and ring that bell because I'm going to put out a new video every single week. But until then, have a good day. She told me